Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here. And today we're going to review one of the most reviled of the Transformers. It's one of the things I enjoy about doing this for all of you, is I love getting to talk about the different Transformers, especially the ones everybody seems to love. But I did tell you early on, in my first video, I was going to go through everybody in the G1 line. So that means we eventually have to cover the ones that nobody likes. And here we have one that's famously not liked. It's the Autobot survivalist, Wheelie. Wheelie was released in 1986, and he would only be available in 1986, being discontinued in 1987, and we would not get a replacement for him. Wheelie is unique among the mini-vehicle type Transformers from 1986, as he was the only one out of all 6 of them that was an entirely original mold. The other 5 that were released that year were all retoolings of ones that had been released in 1984. So Wheelie was the only one that was unique. Unfortunately, the only way everybody remembers Wheelie from my generation is his appearance in the animated Transformers the movie, where he turned up on Quintesson and helped lead the Dinobots to rescue Hot Rod and Cop. That and he talked in rhyming sentences akin to the way Roadblock did on G.I. Joe. Now, we all know nobody in real life really goes out of their way to talk like that. So, Wheelie kind of came off early on as the Jar Jar Binks of Transformers, before Jar Jar was even a thing. Then again, most modern audiences remember how annoying he was when he appeared in Michael Bay's movie, Revenge of the Fallen. Why they felt we needed Wheelie to gain redemption in the follow-up, Dark of the Moon, we'll never know. Maybe Michael Bay secretly likes Wheelie. Taking a look at Wheelie's articulation, he had quite a fair amount of articulation for a mini-vehicle type Transformer. His arms could rotate at the shoulders all the way around, so he could do that like everybody else, but he also had a fair amount in his legs. He does have a hip joint. He has a joint at the hip that allows you to move his legs all the way back up against his back. And he does have a joint at his ankles, and they are independent of each other. So, for a toy of his size, he was pretty well articulated. But of course, right here's one very leveled criticism, is this little tiny head here, when in the cartoon, his head seemed to fill this whole cavity here. But the toy, we get this little face that almost amounts to nothing on him whatsoever. And then, of course, we get dual symbols here right underneath him. We get a sticker right underneath with the Autobot symbol, and then right beyond that is the heat-sensitive label. I don't know how well that's coming off on the camera, folks. Of course, we better not keep rubbing at that. Rubbing at his groin, actually. Ugh. I have to wash my hands now. Excuse me. Alright, let's transform Wheelie here. Of course, to start it off, we're going to fold the face shield down so it covers his head. We'll grab his back section here and we fold it up like so, up against the body, and then we'll line his arms up with this little orange post here on the side of the body. He's got a hole in his hand, so it should just connect and pop in like so. Bend his feet at the ankle straight out. Then fold the legs all the way into the back, and then fold the feet flush against the body. And here is his alternate mode, a Cybertronian car. Or a futuristic little car, however you want to label it. In car mode, he doesn't look too terribly bad. I mean, the colors are yuck. But it's about what one would have imagined cars would have looked like by now, especially if we did make contact with Cybertronians in 1984. Yeah, back then we were pretty delusional. All you need to do is look at the time travel story in Mortal Kombat X, and you can get that idea too. With past Johnny Cage complaining that he hasn't seen a jetpack yet in our timeline. Anyway, how does Wheelie roll on his little plastic wheels? Actually, pretty good. The only problem is that he does tend to spin rather easily here. I do not know as to why, but he does love to spin. So he's a little spinner. Maybe he's trying to impress the ladies. What do you think? Does anybody think Megan Fox or Rosie Huntington-Whiteley would be impressed with that? Because I sure as heck ain't. At any rate, let's look at his loose pieces. While Wheelie doesn't technically have an accessory, he does have a loose part, and that is the windscreen. As you saw there, it was really no effort to remove this. It's easier to remove it when he's in robot mode, but as you can see, it does come off very easily. And it is a rather thin piece of plastic that I just dropped on the carpet. Here's the underside of it, and look at it here from a few different angles. You can kind of see it is a very thin piece, so it is easy to break if you're not careful. So if that's something you're picky about, you definitely want to keep an eye out. Make sure that yours has it. Now we'll take a look at Wheelie's card backer, and as you can see, I've got a very excellent shaped card backer here. The previous owner was smart enough to just cut around the bubble to get Wheelie out. Unfortunately, the picture here on the front really isn't that great either. Of course, this is the later issued from 1986. It also included the iron-on patch that would have been right in here behind Wheelie. On the back, though, it still uses the 1985 mural. So I guess this was one of the earlier ones released instead of later, since it's got the old mural. The real mural it should be featuring Metroplex. And of course in here it's partially obscured by the rules for the iron-on patch game. Up at the top we got the rub sign instructions, and then the four simple steps to turn Wheelie from robot to car. And we got the barcode at the bottom and his robot points. Wheelie was worth half a point, and let's face it folks, that's about all he's really worth. And then we'll move right along here to his tech spec. It's done up predominantly in red to signify he's an Autobot, even lists him as an Autobot. And it has a slight variation to the dorky picture here on the front. Because here, if you look close enough, it almost looks like he's smiling, but that could be just the shrunkenness of this shiny bit here at the bottom of his face. But it almost looks like he's giving us a toothy grin. We'd say something about that, but this is a family channel, so we'll pass on it, move right along. It gives his name as Wheelie, like we already know. And his function is survivalist. And his motto is, "Only the fierce shall live." Wheelie is the sole survivor from a party of intergalactic colonists who crash-landed on Earth. He's a barbaric little savage who managed to stay alive by cunning, stealth, and fearlessness. Speaks in odd rhyming sentences and despises the Decepticons. Fights only when he's under attack and has to defend himself. Yes, like using a slingshot to throw things and hit Grimlock in the nose. Staunch friend to the Dinobots and a reliable ally for Hot Rod and Cup. So this last sentence here was meant to be a throwback to the movie, since they changed that he crashed on Earth instead of on Quintesson. At any rate, let's put the decoder here on the grid and take a look at his stats. It gives his strength as 5, his intelligence is 6, his speed is 8, his endurance is 9, his rank is 5, his courage is 9, his firepower is 7, and his skill is 8. So he's moderately above average in a fair amount of his stats. So I guess that makes him somewhat useful to the Autobot army. But now we get to my thoughts. What do I think of Wheelie? Well, it'd be better believable on him being a survivalist if there was actually more done with it to discuss about it. Nothing's really said about what all he had to learn in order to survive, except what was covered in a children's book that was released around the same time that sort of retold part of the events of the movie, but pretty much had more of the Autobots land on Quintesson and meet up with Wheelie. But even at that, it still didn't really cover a whole lot about what all Wheelie did to learn how to survive. So it leaves you to wonder about the high rate on his skill. Did he really afterwards go and try to learn more methods of how to survive? Plus, as we also aren't totally familiar with everything that a Cybertronian needs to live by, one has to wonder about what could be taught to a Cybertronian in terms of survival training. So I question that a fair bit, and let's also face it, a survivalist would also know better than to be running around in these garish colors, because you're gonna stand out like a sore thumb. Same problem does occur in G.I. Joe as well. Their survival expert Outback, in his first release toy, is wearing a bright white t-shirt, which, as anybody that's been in the military would tell you, that they wouldn't want to be around that guy because he'd be the first one shot. And in a lot of cases, that probably also applies to Wheelie. But that may also apply due to the fact of his annoying way of talking. The rhyming bit just didn't really work. I don't see how it worked for Roadblock in the movie, in the animated series or the animated movie. So it's kind of thank God Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson didn't talk like that when he portrayed Roadblock in the Retaliation movie. Unfortunately, when they put Wheelie into the live-action Transformer movies, they still made him the annoying little twerp that he always is famous for. About the only thing that's going good for this toy is the alt mode isn't too bad when you consider the fact that it was the only original mini vehicle mold we got that year. But even so, that's still going to put Wheelie down on the bottom tier, folks, since he's really not improved his legacy over the years. And that one feature about him just isn't really enough to make him stand out. He's made himself stand out more for the bad than he has with the good. And that concludes my review of the Generation 1 Autobot Survivalist Wheelie. If you liked the video, please leave a thumbs up here on YouTube. If you're new to my channel, hit the subscribe button down below and join up in our ranks. Also, ring the notification bell so you'll be alerted when I post new content. And please do share your thoughts about Wheelie in the comments down below. This is Sparkster1701 saying I will catch you all later.